Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his hands for the 10th time in 5 minutes. The meeting room on Harmony Point Station felt too cold and too hot at the same time. He sat at the long table with the other humans, trying not to think about how this day could change everything. Ambassador Claire Davis sat at the head of the human side. She wore her best blue uniform and kept checking her notes. Captain Ryan Kelly stood near the door with 3 other soldiers. His hand stayed close to his weapon, even though weapons were not allowed in the meeting. Dr. Lisa Adams sat next to Jake with her computer full of alien facts. Jake was just a lieutenant. He did not know why they picked him for this meeting. Maybe because he was good at staying calm, maybe because he was lucky. Right now, he did not feel lucky at all. The aliens were coming today. The Zapparians. Jake had seen pictures, but pictures could not show how big they really were. The files said they looked like giant bugs. They had 4 arms and could tear a man in half without trying hard. They had taken over 17 star systems by fighting better than anyone else. Remember the rules, Ambassador Davis said for the 100th time. No one talks to their queen directly, not even to say hello, not even to ask for water. If you need something, you ask their translator. If you break this rule, they might think we are trying to insult them. That could start a war. Jake nodded with everyone else. He knew the rules. Everyone knew the rules. The Zaphirians had very strict ways of doing things. Their queen was too important for regular people to talk to. Only special aliens called translators could speak to her, and for her, the door opened with a soft sound. Captain Kelly stood up straighter. Dr. Adams stopped typing on her computer. Ambassador Davis put her hands flat on the table. They came in like a wave of darkness. Jake counted 6 aliens, but it was hard to be sure because they moved so fast and smooth. They wore no clothes, but their skin looked like black metal armor. Their eyes were huge and made of many small parts, like the eyes of Earth insects, but much bigger. Then she walked in. Queen Zarathus was twice as tall as Jake. Her forearms moved in slow, careful patterns that looked like some kind of dance. Her armor caught the lights and threw them back like mirrors. When she looked around the room, Jake felt like a mouse being watched by a hawk. But something strange happened. Instead of sitting at the big chair at the end of the table where Queen should sit, she walked to the middle. She looked at all the empty chairs. Then she sat down right next to Jake. Jake's heart started beating so fast he was sure everyone could hear it. Why did she sit there? Did he do something wrong? Was this part of their customs? He tried to remember everything he had learned about alien behavior, but his mind went blank. The translator was a smaller alien who looked more like a worker than a soldier. It moved to stand behind the Queen's chair. Its voice sounded like clicking and buzzing, but the translation machine made it sound like a normal human woman speaking. Queen Zarathus greets the human delegation. The translator said she hopes this meeting will bring understanding between our peoples. Ambassador Davis stood up and bowed slightly. We thanked Queen Zarathus for coming. We hope to find peace between humans and Zephyrians. Jake could smell something like cinnamon and metal coming from the Queen. It was not bad, just different. He tried not to stare at her, but it was hard. Her skin really did look like armor, but it moved like it was alive. Sometimes it changed color slightly, going from black to dark blue to black again. The Queen's eyes were the strangest part. They were made of thousands of tiny parts, each one looking in a different direction, but Jake got the feeling that most of those tiny eyes were looking at him. Not in a scary way, more like she was curious about something. The meeting started with formal words. Ambassador Davis talked about human colonies and trade routes. The Syrian translator talked about their empire and their needs for new planets. It was all very polite and very boring, but Jake noticed that the Queen was not really listening to the formal talk. She kept moving her head slightly to look at him. Her four hands made small gestures that the translator did not translate. Dr. Adams had said that Zapparans talked with their hands as much as with their voices. After an hour of formal talk, they took a break. Ambassador Davis went to talk with Captain Kelly about security. Dr. Adams started typing notes on her computer. The other aliens gathered around their translator, making clicking sounds too quiet for the translation machine to pick up. The Queen did not move. She sat in her chair and looked out the big window that showed the stars. Her hands were still now resting on the table. For a moment she looked almost sad. Jake knew he should get up and walk away. He should go talk to his own people and let the Queen sit alone. That was what the rule said to do, but something about the way she sat there made him think of his sister Kate when she was upset. The Queen turned one of her hands palm up on the table. Jake had read that this meant different things in different alien cultures. For Zapparians, it could mean I am listening, or I am waiting, or I am hoping. Jake looked around the room. No one was watching them. The translator was busy with the other aliens. His own people were busy with their own talks. He put his hand on the table, not touching hers but close enough to show that he saw her gesture. The Queen's armor changed color again, this time to a dark green that Dr. Adams had said meant surprise or interest. For just a moment Jake thought she was going to say something to him directly. Her mouth parts moved slightly, but then the translator came back and the formal meeting started again. As they talked about colonies and trade and borders, Jake kept thinking about that moment. The most powerful alien in this part of the galaxy had made a simple gesture that said she was lonely, and somehow that made her seem less like a monster and more like a person who just happened to look very different. The meeting went on for 2 more hours. When it ended, the Queen stood up with her people to leave. As she walked past Jake's chair, she stopped for just a second. One of her hands brushed against his shoulder so lightly that it might have been an accident, but Jake did not think it was an accident, and when he looked up at her huge alien eyes, he thought he saw something that looked almost like gratitude. After the aliens left, Captain Kelly came over to Jake. What was that about? Why did she sit next to you? Jake shook his head. I don't know, maybe their customs are different than we thought. But deep down, Jake thought he did know. The Queen of the most dangerous alien empire in the galaxy was tired of having people afraid to talk to her. She wanted someone to treat her like a person instead of like a weapon. Tomorrow they would meet again, and Jake was starting to think that maybe, just maybe, he should break some rules. The second day of meeting started badly and got worse fast. Jake sat in the same chair as yesterday, and once again Queen Zarathus chose the seat next to him, but today felt different. The Queen's armor was darker, almost pure black, in her Hands moved in sharp, angry patterns. The Zephyrian demands made Ambassador Davis go pale. They wanted 12 human colonies, not to share them or trade with them, but to own them completely. They wanted humans to pay taxes to the Zephyrian Empire. They wanted human ships to ask permission before traveling through space. These terms are very harsh, Ambassador Davis said carefully. She was trying to stay polite, but Jake could hear the anger in her voice. We need time to think about them. The translator clicked and buzzed for a long time, then it said, Queen Zarifa says that thinking time is over. Humans must choose now, accept these terms or face the consequences. Captain Kelly's hand moved toward his weapon. Dr. Adams stopped typing and stared at her computer screen like it might have better news. Jake felt his stomach twist into a knot. The consequences meant war. Everyone knew that. The Zephyrian Empire had 3 times as many ships as humans did. Their weapons could poison whole planets if they decided to fight. Billions of people would die, but the terms they offered were not much better than dying. Humans would become slaves who got to keep their own planets. Children would grow up knowing they belonged to alien masters. Everything humans had built among the stars would belong to someone else. We need a break to discuss this, Ambassador Davis said. The Queen made a gesture with 2 of her hands. The translator said, 1 hour. Then you will give your answer. Jake watched the Queen during the break. She did not talk to her own people. She did not look at the papers on the table. She just sat and stared out the window at the stars. Her armor kept changing colors slowly, black to dark blue to dark green and back to black. The human team gathered in a corner of the room. They spoke in whispers, but Jake could hear every word. We can't accept those terms, Captain Kelly said. We might as well surrender the whole human race. We can't fight them either, Dr. Adams said. Their bioweapons alone could kill everything on Earth. Ambassador Davis rubbed her forehead. Maybe we can negotiate, ask for better terms. They're not negotiating, Captain Kelly said. They're dictating. There's a difference. Jake stopped listening to his team. He was watching the Queen. Again, she had turned in her chair and was looking right at him, not with her translator nearby, not with other aliens watching, just her looking at him with those huge compound eyes. She stood up slowly and walked toward the door, but halfway there she stopped and looked back at Jake. Then she walked to another door, one that led to the observation deck where people could look out at space. Jake knew what she was doing. She was asking him to follow her alone. Every rule said no. Every order said no. Every smart thought in his head said no. If anyone saw him talking to the Queen directly, it could ruin everything. It could start the war right now, but something in the way she looked at him reminded Jake of his sister Kate again. When their father was sick and dying, Kate used to sit alone and stare out windows just like that. She needed someone to talk to, but she was too proud to ask. Jake looked around the room. His team was still arguing in whispers. The alien translator was talking to the other Zephyrians. No one was watching him. He stood up and walked to the observation deck. The Queen was standing at the big window, looking out at a nebula that painted space in purple and gold colors. She was alone. No translator, no guards, just her. Your people are afraid, she said without turning around. Her voice was like music, made of clicking sounds, but the translation device in the room made it Sound like perfect English, they should. B. Jake's heart was beating so fast he thought it might break. He was talking directly to an alien queen. He was breaking the most important rule of the whole meeting, but he could not walk away now. Fear is just another problem to solve, he said. That's what humans do. We solve problems. The queen turned to look at him. Up close, her eyes were even stranger. They looked like jewels, made of 1,000 pieces, each one catching light differently. Your ambassadors speak of compromise and delay, she said, but you speak of solving problems. Why are you not afraid to die? Jake thought about that question. It was a good question. He was afraid to die, but there were things that scared him more than death, because some things are worth dying for, he said. Freedom, the right to choose our own path, the chance for our kids to grow up under open skies instead of someone else's rules. The queen made a sound that might have been laughter. Your species is strange. We studied your history before coming here. You have wars all the time. You fight each other over everything. But when someone else threatens you, you stop fighting each other and fight them instead. That's because fighting each other is our choice, Jake said. When someone else tries to make our choices for us, that's different. They stood quietly for a moment, looking out at the stars. Jake could not believe he was having this conversation. Yesterday he had been worried about saying the wrong thing to his own team. Today he was talking philosophy with the ruler of an alien empire. My people believe that strength is the only truth, the queen said. The strong take what they want, the weak give what they must. It has always been this way, maybe, Jake said, but humans learned something different. We learned that people working together are stronger than one person working alone, even if that one person is very strong. The queen's armor changed to dark green. Again, you speak of hope. My people do not understand hope. We understand victory and defeat, success and failure, life and death. Hope is what makes the difference between giving up and keeping going when everything looks impossible. Jake said it's what makes someone fight, even when they know they might lose. The queen was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. There are things you do not know about this meeting, she said, things your ambassadors do not know. My empire is not as strong as it appears. Jake felt something cold move through his stomach. What do you mean? Other queens challenge my rule. They say I am weak because I have not conquered enough new worlds. They want to remove me and take my place. If I return home without human territory to give them, they will kill me and choose a new queen, and the new queen would be worse than you. Queen's armor turned almost pure black. Much worse. I offer you slavery. They would offer you death, all of you, every human in the galaxy. Jake stared at her. So you're trying to save us by enslaving us? I'm trying to save both our species, she said, but my people will not accept anything less than victory, and your people will not accept anything less than freedom. Jake felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff. Everything he thought he knew about this meeting was wrong. The queen was not negotiating from strength. She was negotiating from fear. Fear for her own life, and maybe fear for what would happen to humans if someone else became queen. There has to be another way, he said. The queen looked at him with all those Jew-like eyes. What way? My military commanders grow impatient. Your diplomats grow angry. Time is running Out for both of us, Jake thought about his sister Kate again. When their father was dying, the doctors said there was nothing they could do, but Kate refused to give up. She found new doctors, new treatments, new hope. She never stopped looking for another way. What if we worked together instead of against each other? Jake said. The Queen's armor changed to a color Jake had never seen before, a deep blue-green that seemed to glow from inside. Together, you would trust us with your weapons, your ship designs, your planet locations. If you would trust us with yours, Jake said. That's what working together means. The Queen stared at him for a long time. Finally she said, your hour is almost over. We must return to the meeting room. But Jake Morrison, you have given me much to think about. She knew his name. Jake had never told her his name. That meant she had been studying the human team before the meeting started. She had chosen to sit next to him on purpose. As they walked back to the meeting room, Jake realized that everything was about to change. The Queen had shared secrets that could get her killed. She had trusted him with information that could save or destroy both their species. Now he had to figure out what to do with that trust, and he had to do it in the next few minutes before Ambassador Davis gave an answer that could start the biggest war in galactic history. The fate of every human in the universe might depend on what happened next, and somehow Jake Morrison was right in the middle of it all. When they returned to the meeting room, Jake could feel the tension like electricity in the air. Ambassador Davis sat with her hands folded, her face showing nothing. Captain Kelly stood straighter than usual, his jaw tight. Dr. Adams kept looking between her computer and the door like she was planning an escape route. The Queen took her seat next to Jake again. This time, she did something that made everyone stare. She turned to Jake and spoke directly to him without using her translator. Lieutenant Morrison and I have had an interesting conversation, she said. Her clicking voice filled the room, and the translation system made every word clear. Perhaps we should explore new possibilities. Ambassador Davis went very pale. Captain Kelly took a step forward. The alien translator made worried clicking sounds and moved closer to the Queen. Your Majesty, Ambassador Davis said carefully, protocols require that all communication go through proper channels. The Queen's forehands moved in patterns that Jake was beginning to understand. She was dismissing the protocols, pushing them aside like they did not matter. Protocols are for people who do not trust each other, the Queen said. Lieutenant Morrison and I have moved beyond protocols. Jake felt every eye in the room looking at him. He had broken the biggest rule of the meeting, and now everyone knew it. Captain Kelly looked like he wanted to arrest Jake right there. Dr. Adams looked amazed. Ambassador Davis looked like she was trying to figure out if this was a disaster or an opportunity. What possibilities are you thinking about? Ambassador Davis asked. Before the Queen could answer, alarms started going off all over the station. Red lights flashed, and a computer voice said, emergency alert, all personnel to stations. Emergency alert. Captain Kelly grabbed his communicator. Kelly here, what's the situation? The voice that answered me. Jake's blood turned cold. Sir, we're detecting a massive fleet approaching from Zapirian space, over 300 ships. They'll be here in 6 hours. The Queen's armor turned completely black. She stood up so fast that her chair fell over her. Translator rushed to her side, clicking. Frantically, the hardliners have moved. Without my permission, the Queen said. Her voice sounded angry and afraid. At the same time, they have declared me unfit to rule. Admirmore leads them. Now, who is Admiral Vixmore? Ambassador Davis asked. The Queen's hands shook slightly. Jake had never seen an alien look scared before, but there was no other word for what he saw. In her posture, he is my military commander, or he was. He believes that conquest is the only way to solve problems. He thinks I am weak because I tried to negotiate with you instead of simply taking what we wanted. Dr. Adams was typing frantically on her computer. 300 ships. Our entire fleet has only 200 vessels, and most of them are cargo ships or old patrol boats. The Admiral ships carry weapons. The Queen continued. They can poison your atmosphere and make your planets uninhabitable for 1,000 years. They will not offer surrender terms. They will simply kill everything human. They find. Jake felt like the world was spinning around him. So you were trying to save us by taking control before they could kill us? Yes, the Queen said, but now they think I have been corrupted by human ideas. They come to remove me and finish what they believe should have been done from the beginning. Captain Kelly was still talking on his communicator, getting reports from human ships throughout the system. His face got grimmer with each report. Our nearest reinforcements are 3 days away. He said, we have 47 ships in this system, mostly diplomats and guards. That's not enough to stop even one Xerian battleship, let alone 300. Ambassador Davis stood up slowly. Your Majesty, what happens if Admiral Vixmore defeats our ships and removes you from power? He becomes the new ruler of the Zethurian Empire, the Queen said. His first act will be to order the extermination of all human life in the galaxy. He believes your species is too dangerous to exist. Why does he think we're dangerous? Jake asked. We are the ones who are outnumbered. The Queen looked at him with those compound eyes. Because humans do not give up. In every war we studied, when humans were losing, they found new ways to fight. When they were surrounded, they broke out. When they were defeated, they came back stronger. Admiral Vixmore believes that as long as humans exist, they will eventually find a way to threaten the Empire. Dr. Adams looked up from her computer. He's not wrong. Human history is full of comebacks and last-minute victories, but those were against us humans. Captain Kelly said, these aliens have weapons we don't understand and ships we can't match. Jake was thinking hard. The Queen had told him that her people only understood strength, but what if there was a different kind of strength? What if humans could show the Zephyrian something they had never seen before? What if we fought together? Jake said. Everyone in the room turned to look at him. Ambassador Davis raised an eyebrow. Captain Kelly looked like Jake had suggested, jumping out the window. Together, the Queen asked, you would fight alongside Zephyrians after we threatened to enslave your people? The people threatening to enslave us are sitting in this room trying to find a better way. Jake said, the people threatening to kill us are coming here with 300 warships. Seems like an easy choice to me. Captain Kelly shook his head. We can't trust them. How do we know this isn't all a trick? How do we know the Queen won't just turn on us once we help her fight her enemies? Jake looked at the Queen. Her armor was Still black, but there were traces of that blue-green color he had seen on the observation deck. Because she's scared. Jake said, look at her, really, look at her. She's terrified, not of us, of them. She came here trying to save both our species, and now she's about to lose everything. The Queen's translator made clicking sounds, but she waved it away. Lieutenant Morrison is correct. I am afraid. I have ruled the Empire for 30 years, and I have never been as afraid as I am right now. Why? Ambassador Davis asked. Because Admiral Vixmore does not just want to kill humans, the Queen said. He wants to kill any Zaffaran who has been contaminated by contact with your species. That includes me and everyone who came to this meeting. The room went very quiet outside. The alarms were still going off, and people were running through the hallways preparing for battle. So we're all dead if Vixmore wins, Jake said. Yes, the Queen said simply. Then we better make sure he doesn't win, Jake said. Ambassador Davis sat down heavily. How? Even if we combine our fleets, we're still outnumbered almost 2 to 1, and their ships are bigger and better armed than ours. The Queen's armor started changing colors again, black to blue to green and back to black. There is something Admiral Vixmore does not know, something that might give us a chance. What? Captain Kelly asked. He expects me to run. He expects me to try to escape with my loyal ships and hide in some distant system. He has planned his attack based on that assumption. His fleet will arrive spread out, expecting to chase down scattered enemies. Dr. Adams looked up from her computer. But if we're all here waiting for him instead, then his forces will not be proper formation for battle. The Queen finished, and human tactics combined with Zapperian firepower might be enough to surprise him. Jake felt hope growing in his chest like a warm fire. It could work if we hit them before they expect it, before they can organize properly. Captain Kelly was still shaking his head. This is insane. We're talking about allying with people who wanted to conquer us yesterday. Yesterday was yesterday, Jake said. Today we have a chance to save both our species, maybe even become friends instead of enemies. The Queen stood up and extended one of her 4 hands toward Jake. Lieutenant Morrison, if we do this, we will be trusting each other with everything. Your people will know our ship designs, our weapons, our tactics. My people will know yours. There will be no secrets between us. Jake looked at her hand. It was covered in that black armor skin, with claws that could probably cut through metal, but the gesture was the same one humans use to make agreements and show trust. He reached out and took her hand. It felt warm and surprisingly gentle. No secrets, he agreed. Ambassador Davis stood up slowly. I hope you both know what you're doing, because in 5 hours we're going to find out if trust is stronger than fear. Outside the window, human ships were moving into position alongside Zapperian vessels. It was the first time in history that the two species had worked together instead of against each other. Jake hoped it would not be the last. The next few hours passed like a blur of activity and fear. Jake found himself on the bridge of Queen Zaratha's flagship, a massive ship called the Dark Wind. Everything around him was alien and strange, but the crew was working with desperate efficiency to prepare for battle. Human officers worked alongside Zahirian warriors, sharing tactical information through translation devices. Captain Kelly stood next to an alien commander, both of them staring at Battle plans that mixed human creativity with Zephyrian firepower. This is either the bravest thing humans have ever done, or the stupidest, Captain Kelly muttered to Jake. Jake watched Queen Zarathus directing her crew with rapid hand gestures. Her armor had changed too, a deep red color that her translator said meant determination in the face of death. Maybe both, Jake replied, but it's better than just giving up. Ambassador Davis was working with Dr. Adams to coordinate the mixed fleet. 47 human ships were spread among 120 Zephyrian vessels loyal to the Queen. Against Admiral Vixmore's 300 ships, it still looked hopeless, but they had one advantage. The Zor expected the Queen to run. He was bringing his fleet in a wide formation designed to chase down scattered enemies across multiple star systems. He was not expecting to find a unified force waiting for him. Contact in 2 hours, reported the Zaffiran sensor operator. The translation device made its clicking voice sound like a human woman, but Jake could hear the fear underneath. The Queen approached Jake. And Captain Kelly, your people fight differently than mine, she said. My warriors are taught to charge directly at the enemy with maximum force, but human tactics use deception and surprise. That's because we're usually outnumbered, Captain Kelly said. We had to learn to be smart instead of just strong. Show me, the Queen said. Captain Kelly pulled up a holographic display of the battle zone. Hexmore will come through this nebula here, expecting to spread out and hunt for your ships. Instead, we'll be hiding in 3 groups. When his lead ships come through, we hit them from all sides before the rest of his fleet can help. The Queen's compound eyes studied the display. This requires perfect timing. If even one group attacks too early or too late, we will be destroyed. That's why we need to trust each other completely, Jake said. No holding back, no second thoughts. When the moment comes, we all move together. An hour later, Jake was standing in the observation area of the Dark Wind, looking out at the strangest sight he had ever seen. Human ships and Zaffiran ships flew side by side in perfect formation. The human vessels looked small and fast next to the massive alien battleships, but together they looked like they might actually have a chance. Incoming transmission from Admiral Vixmore, announced the communications officer. Put it on the main screen, the Queen ordered. The image that appeared made Jake's blood run cold. Admiral Vixmore was even bigger than the Queen, with scars across his armor that spoke of many battles. His eyes glowed with red light and his voice sounded like grinding metal. Zarathus, you have betrayed everything our people stand for, he said in the clicking Zephyrian language. The translation made his words sound even more threatening. You sit with humans like an equal instead of ruling them like a queen. You have become weak and unfit to lead. The Queen stepped forward, her own armor now blazing red. I have become wise enough to know that strength shared is greater than strength hoarded, something you will never understand. Wisdom is for the weak, the Zor snarled. I bring 300 ships to cleanse this system of human contamination and to remove you from power. Surrender now and I will make your death quick. I offer you the same choice, the Queen replied calmly. Surrender and I will allow you to live in exile. Dexmer's laugh sounded like metal tearing. You have less than 200 ships and most of them are human garbage. I will crush you like insects. The screen went dark. He's confident. Captain Kelly observed, too confident. The Queen said, that will be his weakness. 30 minutes later, the enemy fleet began emerging from the nebula. Jake watched on the tactical display as ship after ship appeared, spreading out in the hunting formation they had expected. The Zor's flagship was a massive dreadnought that dwarfed even the Queen's ship. First group is in position, reported Ambassador Davis from her command ship. Second group ready, came Captain Ryan Hall's voice from the human destroyer Swift, just as third group standing by confirmed the Kai Sarian commander from his battleship Storm. Fang. Jake felt his heart pounding as they watched more enemy ships emerge. 100, 200, 250. The numbers kept climbing, and each new ship made their chances look worse. Contact in 5 minutes, announced the sensor operator. The Queen moved to stand beside Jake at the observation window. Whatever happens in the next hour will determine the fate of both our species, she said quietly. No pressure or anything, Jake replied, trying to make a joke to calm his nerves. The Queen's armor shifted to that blue-green color he had learned meant amusement. Your species uses humor to cope with fear. Mine uses anger. Perhaps that is why we need each other. On the tactical display, Theaksmore's lead ships were moving into the trap zone. 20 vessels, mostly scouts and light cruisers, advancing ahead of the main fleet. All groups, this is it, Captain Kelly announced on the command frequency. Remember, we hit fast and hard, then fall back to draw them into the second phase for both our peoples, the Queen added in both human English and Zahirian. Clicks. Attack, Jake whispered. Even though he was not in command of anything, the space around them erupted. In light and fury, human ships darted between the larger Zahirian vessels like fighters protecting bombers. Plasma beams and particle cannons lit up the darkness, turning the nebula into a deadly light show. The first phase worked perfectly. Dexmers advanced. Scouts were caught completely off guard. Within minutes, 15 of the 20 lead ships were destroyed or disabled. The survivors fell back toward the main fleet, broadcasting warnings, but Theaksmore was a veteran commander. Instead of charging forward in anger, he regrouped his forces and began advancing in a tight formation that would be much harder to surprise. He's learning, Captain Kelly said grimly. Then we teach him something else, the Queen replied. The real battle was about to begin. Jake watched as both fleets moved toward each other across the Starrel. In a few minutes, they would either win the greatest victory in human history or die trying. Either way, nothing would ever be the same again. All ships prepare for full engagement, the Queen announced. Jake gripped the rail in front of him and tried not to think about how many ways this could go wrong. Outside the window, 300 enemy ships were coming to kill everyone he had ever cared about, but they were not running. They were not hiding. They were standing together, human and Zahirian, ready to fight for the right to choose their own future. Sometimes Jake thought that was all you could do. Sometimes standing together was enough. The main battle began with a wall of fire that lit up space like a second sun. Thexer's fleet advanced in perfect formation, their weapons creating a deadly barrier that no ship should have been able to cross. But the combined human Zahirian fleet did not try to cross it. Instead, they did something that made Admiral Theaksmore pause in confusion. They scattered. Human ships dove down below the plane of battle while Zahirian vessels climbed Above it, within seconds, the neat formation that had faced Thea's advance was spread across 3 dimensions of space. "What are they doing?" Jake heard Vixmore and LT Uncan GT's voice over the intercepted communications. "This is not how battles are fought. It is how human battles are fought, Queen." Zarathus replied calmly over the open channel. "We have learned their ways, just as they have learned ours." The scattered formation suddenly made sense as Jake watched it develop. The human ships were using their speed and maneuverability to stay ahead of the enemy weapons, while the Zephyrian ships used their heavy armor to absorb damage and strike back with devastating force. "Group Alpha, begin your run, Captain," Kelly ordered. 12 human ships dove toward Thex, the Zommer's left flank, moving so fast they looked like shooting stars. Behind them came 6 Zephyrian battleships, their plasma cannons charging to full power. The enemy formation shifted to meet this attack, just as the plan predicted, but as soon as they turned to face Group Alpha, Group Beta struck from the opposite side. "It's working," Dr. Adams reported from her analysis station. "Their formation is breaking apart, but Theaxmore was not a simple enemy. As his formation stretched to meet attacks from multiple directions, he ordered his reserves forward. 50 fresh ships, including his massive flagship, began advancing toward the center of the battle. "He's my trying to punch through our middle," Ambassador Davis warned. "If he breaks our line, he can defeat us in pieces." The Queen's armor blazed bright red as she watched the tactical display. "Then we do not let him break our line. All ships converge on the flagship. Everything we have, Your Majesty. That will leave our flanks exposed," warned her tactical officer. "Sometimes you must risk everything to save everything," the Queen replied. Jake watched in amazement as nearly 200 ships turned toward Thex's dreadnought. Human destroyers raced alongside Zahirian cruisers. Fighter squadrons from both species flew in mixed formations. For the first time in galactic history, 2 different civilizations were fighting as one. The battle around Thex's flagship became the most intense combat Jake had ever seen. Weapons that could destroy planets fired at point-blank range. Ships rammed into each other when their guns were not enough. The space around the huge enemy vessel became a graveyard of twisted metal and expanding clouds of gas. But the flagship was heavily armored and powerfully armed. Human ships exploded against its shield like waves against a cliff. Even Zephyrian battleships could barely damage its thick hull. "We're not getting through," Captain Kelly reported. His voice was tight with frustration and fear. That was when Jake remembered something from the intelligence briefings. Zephyrian ships had one weakness that human ships did not share: their power systems were centralized in a single core that supplied energy to all ship systems. "The power core," Jake said to the Queen. "If we could overload their power core, the whole ship would shut down." The Queen's eyes focused on him. "How their core is protected by armor thicker than a battleship's hull." Jake was thinking fast, remembering everything he had learned about human and Zephyrian technology. "Human ships have distributed power systems. We can overload our reactors and survive because the explosion gets channeled through multiple pathways. But if a human ship exploded inside a Zephyrian ship," the Queen understood immediately. Her armor went completely black. "You are talking about a suicide attack." "I'm talking about someone ramming their ship into that flagship at maximum speed with their reactor set to overload. Jake said the explosion might be enough to damage the power core, and the crew of that ship would die, the Queen said. Quietly, Jake nodded, probably, unless they could beam out at the last second. Captain Kelly had been listening to their conversation. The Dark Wind has the strongest shields. If any ship could survive long enough to get close to that flagship, it would be this one. The Queen looked around her bridge at the crew members who had served with her for years. I cannot ask my people to die for a plan that might not work. You're not asking, Jake said. I'm volunteering. Everyone on the bridge turned to stare at him. Captain Kelly looked like Jake had lost his mind. Dr. Adams went pale. Ambassador Davis started to protest. Jake, you're not qualified to pilot a warship, Captain Kelly said. I'm qualified to push a button that makes the reactor explode, Jake replied, and I'm small enough that a Zapirian escape pod might actually work for me. The Queen studied Jake with those compound eyes. Why would you do this? Why would you risk your life for people you barely know? Jake thought about his sister Kate and his parents back on Earth and all the human children who deserve to grow up free, but he also thought about the Queen sitting alone and afraid on the observation deck, hoping for someone to understand that she was trying to save both their species. Because this is what humans do, he said. When someone needs help, we help. When someone needs saving, we save them, even if they're different from us, even if we're scared. It's who we are. The Queen's armor cycled through every color Jake had ever seen her display, and a few new ones besides. Finally, it settled on a bright gold color that her translator said meant honor beyond words. Then we do this together, she said. The Dark Wind will make the attack run. I will pilot the ship myself. Your Majesty, you cannot, her tactical officer began. I can and I will, the Queen said firmly. Jake Morrison has shown me what it means to put others before yourself. It is time I learned that lesson. The next few minutes were chaos as the crew prepared for the suicide run. Escape pods were readied. Non-essential personnel were transferred to other ships. The reactor was modified to overload on command. Jake found himself in the pilot seat next to the Queen, watching Theaksmore's flagship grow larger on the view screen. Enemy fire hammered their shields, each hit weakening their protection. Shields at 30%, reported the tactical officer. 20%. 10%. Now, the Queen said. Jake pushed the button that would overload the reactor. The ship's engines screamed as they poured every bit of power into one final acceleration toward the enemy flagship. Escape pods launching, announced the computer, but Jake and the Queen stayed at their stations, guiding the ship through the final seconds of its flight. Jake could see individual windows on the enemy ship now. He could see Zaphoran crew members scrambling to get out of the way at the last possible moment. The Queen grabbed Jake and pulled him into her personal escape pod. It launched just as the Dark Wind struck Theaksmore's flagship and exploded in a ball of fire that outshone the nearby star. When the light faded, the enemy flagship was drifting powerless in space. Its weapons were silent, its shields were down, its engines were dead, and Admiral Theaksmore was transmitting a surrender signal. The escape pod landed in the docking bay of a human ship. Jake and the Queen climbed out to find Captain Kelly and Ambassador Davis waiting for them. Is it over? Jake asked. It's over, Captain Kelly. Confirmed. The Moore's remaining ships are standing down. Without their flagship, they're ready to negotiate. The Queen's armor was now a soft blue color that Jake had never seen before. Her translator said it meant peace after long war. What happens now, Ambassador? Davis asked. The Queen looked at Jake, then at the humans around her. Now we learn to be allies instead of enemies. We share our knowledge and our strength. We explore the galaxy together instead of fighting over it, and the we'll be tried by a council of both our species, the Queen said. Justice shared. As justice strengthened, 3 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the new joint space station, Unity Point, watching human and Zephyrin ships working together to build something that had never existed before. A truly interstellar alliance. The Salem Accords had been signed by both governments, trade agreements were being negotiated, cultural exchange programs were starting, children from both species were learning each other's languages. Queen Zarathus approached and stood beside him at the window. She no longer needed a translator when talking to humans. She had learned English just as Jake had learned some basic Zephyrin. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had followed the rules? She asked. Jake smiled. If I'd followed the rules, we'd probably all be dead right now or enslaved, the Queen agreed. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is break the rules that keep people apart, and sometimes the best victories are the ones where everybody wins, Jake said. Outside the window, human children and young Zephyrians were playing together in the station's recreation area, learning that differences in appearance did not matter when hearts were the same. Jake had started this journey as a lieutenant following orders. He was ending it as a bridge between two civilizations that had learned to trust each other. It was, he thought, a pretty good way to change the galaxy.